Welcome to the River is Lit podcast, the podcast to accompany Medway River Lit, a literary festival for Medway.
Won't you come down, won't you come down, won't you come down to Chatham Town? Oh, won't you come down, won't you come down, won't you come down to Chatham Town?
Hello, I'm BFH, poet and man in the library.
Hi, I'm Sam Hall, playwright turned graphic novelist.
I'm AMJ. I like writing lists and glimmer questing.
And we are the Medway River Lit team. Hello, my name is Barry Fenneman Hall and I am welcoming you to episode 10 of The River is Lit. It is sultry and sunny outside. It hasn't rained in weeks. So we are getting to the sort of time of year where we're going to be talking about our summer reading suggestions. So very shortly, I, in the company of Sam Hall and
Hello.
Anne-Marie Jordan, will be doing just that. And first up, we're going to be talking about some novels. And here's Sam Hall to tell you about hers.
So the book that I've most recently read and enjoyed is called 1,000 Blues by a Korean author called Seon-Ran, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly. So the premise of the story is in 2035, in the shadow of a racecourse, two sisters grow up helping their mother at the local cafe that serves renowned ramen. Family life is fractious, especially when one of them loses their day job to an automaton. When the sisters discover their beloved racehorse today is being sent to the knacker's yard after a lifetime of racing flat out, they're determined to rescue her. To remind today of happier times, they hatch a plan to let her run one last race, but it will be no ordinary event. They'll train her to run the slowish race of her life. Narrated by a most unusual and unforgettable storyteller, 1,000 Blues is a powerful hymn to our humanity. Brimming with heart, hope and rage, it's a book to cherish, share and reread. So I hadn't read anything by this author before. So this book actually won the 4th Korea Sci-Fi Literature Award. The main character's a robot.
Okay.
So he's a racing robot, and he kind of is a robot where his AI has got to a point where it actually is artificial intelligence. And it's kind of, weirdly enough, it's really quite emotional at the end. I don't want to give too much of a spoiler, though I suppose I just have done, haven't I? You do actually sort of start to care for the robot. He's called Broccoli, Collie for short. Yes, I mean, this is a really good book. I'd recommend it for sure. But it's about two sisters and a mum who sort of reconnect through knowing the robot, really. The cover's very, very nice. We'll put a picture of it on of the podcast so that people can see what it looks like. What book have you got there in your hand?
What book have I got?
Yeah.
The Night Alphabet by Joelle Taylor. Joelle Taylor, you may know, is an award-winning poet who recently won the T.S. Eliot Prize for her collection. I'm going to say canto, because you could interpret it another way when you see the cover, and I don't want to get banned off whatever airwaves these are going to go on. But it was really startlingly brilliant work, which was very, very from the heart, clearly. Joelle Taylor is someone I did gig with ages ago. Horrible name dropping, there you go. She won't remember it, but I do. She was remarkable that day. And like a number of poets who have done quite well, I say quite well, I'm damning with faint praise there. She's one of the most famous poets in the country, if not the world. She's got more opportunities to do things now that she's got the big prize. And she's gone into the long form, as quite a lot of poets before her, such as Bernardine Evaristo, have done, and written a novel, which is called The Night Alphabet. I'm just going to give you a bit of a breakdown here of what it's about without giving too much away. A woman walks into a tattoo parlour, but it's no ordinary woman, and this is Hackney in 2233. the kind of hackney it is somewhat Blade Runner-esque. You get the feeling there's an awful lot of sticky, futuristic, climate change rain, and a lot of neon. That's the impression I get on it. This person is called Jones, and Jones's body is covered in tattoos. But she wants to add one final inking to her gallery, a thin line of ink mixed with blood that connects her body art together, creating a unique map. As the two artists set to work, Jones tells them the story behind each tattoo. As Jones is no ordinary woman, these are no ordinary stories. Each one represents a doorway to a life Jones fell into, a remembering. Some of these lives were in the past, others in the future, some are sideways. But each of them connects Jones to the two tattoo artists in some way, although they are unaware of it. Composed of interconnecting stories set across geographies and time spans, we visit the dystopian cities of the Quiet Men, the coal mines of 19th century Lancashire, and we join a gang of vigilante sex workers. We also enter the world of an incel murderer, haunt the old Maryville gay bar, and uncover plans to genetically modify female children. Each story brings us closer to Jones's truth and how her life is intricately interwoven with that of the women tattooing her body.
And can you tell that she's a poet who's written a novel?
Yes, you can. I've spotted it a little bit with some of the output of Bernardine Evaristo and also some others that have done that as well. Mark Connors up north, who's a quite well-known poet in Yorkshire, has written some novels. There will be startlingly beautiful vignettes on a page in a long-form book that they've written, which if they hadn't have been writing this book, would have been a poem. And they would have cut the lines, they would have messed with it, they would have made it more poetic, but it's poetic anyway. And they're heartbreakingly beautiful in this when she really turns it on, as only Joelle Taylor can. I do sometimes think that with all really good poets who write novels, though you do get that thing sometimes of like having a ruby being dropped into a load of sand, because a novel can't just be turned up to 11 like a poem can for a whole 400 pages. It would be exhausting. So you can get that feel about it. This was a very rewarding book to read. I kind of got where it was going to go a little bit before the end, and maybe you will if you read it. I'm not going to give that away, but you kind of do get an inkling a little bit from the end, and it addresses so many great subjects, and as well things that have been close to Joelle's life. She's talking about the Maryville, which is a bar that clearly she's been a regular of for a long, long time, and I do believe she has a background in the Lancashire coal mine area as well. So she's writing about things she knows about, but she's putting a really futuristic twist on it. I loved it. I really did like this book a lot.
Fabulous. I'm going to talk about, I'm trying to shake up the way in which I read. So I'm trying to get more into my Kindle, because I do like the tangibility of a novel. But I also recently I had to do a solo flight, and anyone who knows me knows flying is not my friend. And as there was no one there whose hand I could crush without probably being accused of inappropriate behaviour with someone I didn't know, I decided to read a book because I thought that would be a really good way to take my mind off my impending doom. So a friend had recommended Yellow Face. It's by Rebecca F. Kuang, and she is a Sunday Times bestseller and again a Reese Witherspoon book club recommendation, and it absolutely hit the spot, completely took my mind off the fact I was miles up in the air in a glorified tin can. And I will tell you a bit of the background of it. It's when failed writer June Hayward witnesses her rival Athena Liu die in a freak accident, she sees her opportunity and takes it. So what if it means stealing Athena's final manuscript? So what if it means borrowing her identity? And so what if the first lie is only the beginning? Finally, June has the fame she always deserved, but someone is about to expose her. And I just absolutely loved it. It's what I needed. I felt that the pacing was really good. And I think sometimes I still miss, I don't know why, but I love that feeling of turning over a page. And I love of looking at how many pages I've got left in a chapter. And maybe this is because I'm not quite as au fait with a Kindle or another electronic reading device. I'm sure there might be those facilities anyway. But I just found it fascinating. It covers so many different themes. You've got fame, cultural appropriation, plagiarism, racism, cyberbullying, social media, which I think I might have already said. Apologies, I am basically made up of sugar and caffeine today. So I'd really recommend it, and I really can't wait to get to the end of it. I just haven't had time because I've been revising for an exam, but it's one of those books that it feels like it's got under my skin, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all wraps up.
We're moving on now to non-fiction with a vaguely environmental theme. Some like more than others, but I think everything that's written in the last few years should have an environmental theme because that's the world that we live in. I will start with this one. This is a book that it's very rare this ever happens. You sat in a cafe and it has that book rack that says, "Here, take me. We are a little library. Take this book." And normally it's a load of like dusty old Dick Francis novels from 1986 or something by Jackie Collins. Not knocking Jackie Collins, well, I am, but if you like that, that's grand. There are no bad books. There are only all that nonsense. I'm not at work now. I don't have to say this stuff. I don't like that stuff. I just don't. So yeah, we've digressed a lot here. Anyway, as I was kind of trying to say before, that books like that are rarely stuff you pick up and you really get into. But I saw this thing which had a really sort of interesting cover, which had like a rocket on the front of it, called Astrotopia, the dangerous religion of the corporate space race. I thought, that looks for free. I'm having that. So I picked it up and took it home. And it really, as unusually as well, it was quite a recent book. It's, I'll give you a bit of a sort of rundown from it. It's by Mary Jane Rubenstein, who is a lecturer in science and religion in the USA. Really, the background to this is the environmental, political and public health crises have been multiplying on Earth. We're also at the dawn of a new space race in which governments team up with celebrity billionaires to conquer the cosmos for human gain. The best known of these pioneers, as we must advisedly call them, are selling different versions of the future, while Elon Musk and SpaceX seek to establish a human presence on Mars. Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin work toward moving millions of Earthlings into rotating near-Earth habitats. Despite these distinctions, these two billionaires share a core utopian project, the salvation of humanity through the exploitation of space. In Astrotopia, Mary Jane Rubenstein pulls back the curtain on the not-so-new myths these space barons are peddling, like growth without limits, energy without guilt, and salvation in a brand-new world. As Rubenstein reveals, we've already seen the destructive effects of this frontier zealotry in the centuries-long history of European colonialism. Much like the imperial project on Earth, this renewed effort to conquer space is presented as a religious calling. God is with us. In the face of a coming apocalypse, some very wealthy messiahs are offering an otherworldly escape to a chosen few, but Rubenstein does more than expose the values of capitalist technoscience. As the product of bad mythologies, she offers a vision of exploring space without reproducing the atrocities of earthly colonialism, encouraging us to find and even make stories that put cosmic caretaking over profiteering. It was a very, very rewarding read. It gets into some quite deep ethics, such as, should we care about space rocks? Do they have agency? Why are we even doing this? As a professor of religion, she's very, very grounded in the fact that, like lots of things that have been said in the Bible, are not things that we should necessarily take as gospel, to use that term. The one thing that stayed with me in this is a little bit about the sort of new Canaan of the cosmos, in that, it's a whole promised land of milk and honey. It was used to kick all of the native peoples out of places like Mexico and everywhere else that Christianity turned up with the Bible and some Latin. But you can see the roots of it in this. There's a zeal to the point of like, well, we might as well trash the planet because it will at least give us the impetus to get off it and go somewhere else. And by the way, I'd like to make another £1 million or so. just every minute, while we're doing that. Yeah, it's a real wake-up call. I mean, when I found out that she was a professor of religion, I was beginning to get sort of a few alarm calls on that, because I'm kind of like the opposite of that. But, she doesn't mess about. She holds these people to account and shows up the ridiculousness of some of the things that they say. And, people that we've looked up to in the past, such as Barack Obama, they're not blameless. He was the first person that started this sign-off and cast-off of space exploration to the private sector, because it's expensive and we can no longer afford it. So let's give it to some guys who want to do it. And they've done that, but what goes with that is the billionaire psyche.
So, what's your vaguely climatey themed book, Anne-Marie?
So, this one I've been listening to on audiobooks. I do quite a lot of driving, which I do apologise, because I appreciate that's not great for the environment. But I've been listening to Ultra Processed People by Chris Van Tulleken. And what really appealed to me about this is there are times in my life where, A, I'm amazed I don't have scurvy, because my diet isn't always that nutritious. And B, I've said it once, I'll say it again, I would probably marry my microwave, because it's got me through some dark days.
Excellent.
And the subtitle to this is, why do we all eat stuff that isn't food, and why can't we stop? And what I really like about this is he explores it in a way that doesn't feel like you're being lectured or told that, well, surely you must know what you're eating and you must know how to make better choices. It's just a really accessible book, and it has made me stop and think. It perhaps hasn't to the degree I was hoping be a panacea and made me swerve the chocolate aisle in Asda, but hey, small steps. Maybe it's sprinkled, no pun intended, some breadcrumbs, and this will be the start of at least me looking at making better choices. But I really like the way that it's very well researched, and I find him a very personable individual to listen to, because sometimes with an audiobook, even though I really like the subject, I just can't always engage with the voice. And I'm sure people have said that about mine, so that is no shade whatsoever, but I'm really enjoying it, and it's really making my journeys much more entertaining and interesting as I go to and from work.
Oh yes, so the climate themed book that I've got in my hand here is called Drawn to Change the World. It's a graphic novel collection telling stories about 16 youth climate activists, and it's edited by Reynolds. The idea behind the book is the climate crisis is reaching a critical tipping point, and you might have heard of the countless amazing young people who are taking action and creating change. Reynolds shines a spotlight on 16 incredible youth activists from all around the world who are fighting to protect the planet and all life on Earth. These inspiring true stories highlight how young people can really change the world. Each story is illustrated by a different artist, and it's accompanied by facts and pictures that explain the science. So, although it's advertised as for ages 8 to 12, I think it's probably, it's accessible for older people. It's not kind of dumbing down, but it's also a book that you could share with your children. So I'm going to read a little bit from the back. What can you do? When asking what can I do, it's really important to think about this quote from writer, historian and activist Rebecca Solnit. A climate story we urgently need is one that exposes who is actually responsible for climate chaos. Oxfam reports that over the past 25 years, the carbon impact of the top 1% of the wealthiest human beings was twice that of the bottom percent, so going back to Barry's book. By saying we are all responsible, we avoid the fact that the global majority of us don't need to change much, but the minority needs to change a lot. It's also important to remember how effective the propaganda of fossil fuel giant BP was in coining the phrase carbon footprint, which shifted the responsibility to the individual and away from the fossil fuel companies responsible for the crisis in the first place. So bearing this in mind, there are absolutely things that you can do as an individual, working in communities and raising your voice, that can make a huge difference, just like the activists in this book. So, and that's like a quote from drawn to change the world. So each story is illustrated in a different style. It tells us about young people from various different countries and what they've done. And that's great because one of the things that people always point out is that people have heard of Greta Thunberg, and that's about it regarding young people. Although there are loads of young people all around the world from different communities, different backgrounds, who are each working in their communities. It's a really nice little book for all ages. I'd say a great primer to give an idea of what you can do. So, yeah, there is no planet B, it says, in a tiny little box at the bottom.
Unless you're Elon or Jeff, who believes that there is a planet B, and
they're
going to find it. Okay, so that was 3 ways in which, we can kind of learn from books to avert what's coming, and we all know it is. We are now moving on to 3 quite different books from the graphic novel and non-fiction and poetry categories. And first of all, out of those, here's Anne-Marie to tell you about hers.
I'm going to start with a book that is actually more life-affirming than perhaps it initially sounds. It's called Everybody Died, So I Got a Dog, and it's by Emily Dean. And what I really loved about her is I first came across her podcast called Walking the Dog, and she's got this absolutely just sounds a rock star shih tzu called Raymond, and Raymond absolutely rules the roost. And when I started to research a little bit more about her, it turns out that, as the title suggests, everybody died so she got a dog. So I will read some of the blurb, but it really is, I can't begin to say just how heartwarming it is. And it starts off with, this is some of the blurb for it. Growing up with the Deans was a fabulous training ground for many things, ignoring unpaid bills, being the most entertaining guest at dinner, deconstructing poetry. It was never home for the dog Emily craved. Emily shared the lively chaos with her beloved older sister Rachel, her rock, and over the years the sisters' bond grew even closer. And as Rachel went on to have the cosy family and treasured dog Giggle, Emily threw herself into unsettled adventure, dog ownership remaining a distant dream. Then tragically, Rachel is diagnosed with cancer, and in 3 devastating years, Emily loses not only her sister, but both her parents as well. However, this is such a gorgeous story of what it is to be human, because it's funny, it's heartbreaking, and it really shows how Emily discovers that it's possible to overcome the worst that life can throw about you. And I know that we're talking about books, but her podcast is great because she goes and talks to a variety of people about their dogs. And as you can imagine, it's a springboard for, views into their lives and things like that. But I just absolutely raced through this book, and I actually read it in book format because, like I was saying earlier, I like the tangibility of it. But it was one of those where I did not want to put it down. And I appreciate that for some people it might feel a bit raw, so that's why I think it's very good to say at the outside what it's about. But I really can't emphasize enough about it. Really is just gives you the possibility, after having so much thrown at you, that there's still hope and there's still connection. And as I love dogs, I know I'm biased, but just what joy a dog in your life can bring.
Excellent. And I would say cats, but dogs too.
Absolutely.
Dogs too. I would say so. I mean, you had me at the title. Who is going next? Is it going to be me?
Yeah,
It's going to be me. Yeah, do it. Okay, this is a poetry collection I'm going to tell you about. I really like books that take me to places where I either haven't been or cannot go or never will. It's just not a place I'm going to go to. The ones previously are the future and space. That's what I've spoken about so far. Neither of those places I'm going to go. And nor would I, this one likely, I wouldn't have thought. The book is The Wickedest by Caleb Femi, and it's his second poetry collection. And, in that, Caleb writes from a young South London black experience that is completely alien to me, and is likely to remain so. what it's all about, basically, from the evening through to the morning, from 10:45 through till dawn, this is a chronological telling of a minute-by-minute depiction of a typical night at a legendary monthly house party known as the Wickedest, where you meet a vivid cast of characters, young and old, all surfing a revelry steeped in camaraderie, community, desire, and a spirit of jubilant defiance. The Wickedest explores the institution of shubs or house parties and their vital role within working class communities. The poems range from classical English sonnets, because, you know, he's got his chops, he really is very, very good at what he does, to experimental forms, and are immersively interwoven with photographs. I mean, in the middle of this, there is a risk assessment for the house. I mean, it is, and there's some brilliant photography in it, and it holds together. It shows you what you can do with poetry. Caleb Femi, I mean, his breakthrough, his first full collection a few years ago was called Poor, which was about the experience of being on a quite fearsome sounding housing estate or housing estates in South London, and what it's like to grow up on them, and how it is to be a young man, particularly in his case a young black man, in that arena. And it was an arena. I think he said, I mean, it's an amazing book. One of its poems, in fact, is the poem of the week in Chatham Library at the moment. He has said in the run-up to putting out The Wickedest that he did not want to write another book about the unremitting grimness of being a young black man. We've been there, we've done that, and it's worn me out, or words to that effect. And I now want to write about some really positive stuff, about going to a party all night in South London where everybody's welcome. If you know, you know, and the police ain't getting in. Even when they sometimes turn up there, they ain't getting in. This is great, this, you know, DJ Shoutouts. This is a 4-line poem from 2:47 a.m. That's when it went off, and you can imagine this did happen. Man, dem, I need you to take it easy on the oud. It's like a fumigation in here. For the sake of our nose cavities, relax. And you have little snippets like that. There are longer bits. There are romances that go throughout the entire book that sort of leave and come back again. And eventually, in the dawn, we all go home. Maybe we'll come back again, or maybe we won't. But for the people that are in this is their life. And you get a snapshot of it. And as you said, Anne-Marie, about blasting through that book very, very quickly, I tend to read poetry collections slowly to try and savour them. And there is stuff to savour in this. There really, really is. It's a brilliant book. But I blasted through this in the space of a day because I wanted to feel the rush of what they were feeling while I was going through it. You know, it's like, and another page and another page and another page, and you want to keep going. And that's not because it's fast food fodder. It's not that at all. It's a really great book. So yes, that was Caleb Femi, The Wickedest.
So my book is another graphic novel. It's called Days of the Bagnold Summer by Joff Winterhart. We just picked it up in a shop, a second-hand shop in Whitstable a couple of weeks ago, and it just looked interesting. Mainly because, like, being a bit of a printing geek, I was quite interested and intrigued by the landscape format, rather than like being a sort of portrait A4 or A5. It's a landscape format. And I'll just read the blurb on the back. When someone looks back and writes a history of the summer, two people they will almost certainly leave out are Sue and Daniel Bagnold. So begins Joff Winterhart's sublimely funny and perceptive graphic novel, Days of the Bagnold Summer. Sue, 52, works in a library. Daniel, 15, is still at school. This was the summer holidays Daniel was due to spend with his father and his father's pregnant new wife in Florida. When they cancel his trip, Sue and Daniel face 6 long weeks together. Joff Winterhart perfectly captures the ennui, the tension, the pathos, and yes, the affection of the mother-son relationship. Already well known for his animated films like Violet and Turquoise, he here shows himself to be a comics author of extraordinary talent. And a quote from Posey Simmons about it is, Days of the Bagnold Summer is extremely original, funny, touching, and beautifully observed in both the drawing and the writing. There's probably no truer portrait of teenage and parental angst. To talk a little bit about the illustration, so each kind of story is just a page with 6 panels, basically, and the panels are black and white, no background hardly at all, so it's just sort of focusing on people's faces, close-ups of what they're doing, close-ups of what they're looking at. Daniel is a big heavy metal fan, so he gets involved in a heavy metal band, and a lot of the pictures are sort of Daniel just being a sort of grumpy teenager and not being happy that he's had to stay at home with his mum over the summer when he could have been in America. And, you know, his mum's kind of, oh, I'm just, you know, I'm not leading a very fulfilled life since my husband left me, and my son resents me and won't communicate with me, which is probably quite a familiar story to a lot of mums of teenage boys, mums and dads of teenage boys probably. But it's nice though, because they, over the summer, they do kind of grow closer and they do start talking to each other. Daniel washes his hair by the end of the actual book, as they have to go to, is it a wedding or a funeral that they end up going to? It's a wedding, so yeah, it's not. And the very last panel is the only single page image, and it's just a picture of him and his mum walking off into the distance together, and it just says the day after tomorrow Daniel goes back to school. So over the summer they've kind of like come to a new understanding of being in the same house together and not quite hating it as much as they did initially. So I mean, it's charming. It's a few years old now. It's from 2012. And Barry said it's been made into a movie, which I haven't seen, but yeah, I'll be interested to see the movie.
Right, lastly we have 3 more books that we will talk to you about. Here we go. Right, I'll go first, in fact. I will go first. This book's been haunting me for a bit because I've seen loads and loads of reviews for it and it intrigues the heck out of me. And we did that thing of walking into the bookshop in St Pancras, and that's fatal because, you know, they don't have shopping trolleys in there, but they should. And I walked out with some classics. And this, it's Doppelganger by Naomi Klein, who is, you know, quite a sort of political writer. Naomi Klein that I've read on and off over the years, you know, the whole no logo thing. I was very, very big into that, and I agree with it entirely. Doppelganger is about how people, and this is particularly the case with famous women who, for whatever reason, aren't really, really sort of outlandishly recognisable. She began to be confused with Naomi Wolf. She noticed this years and years ago. She actually heard someone, well, it's that classic thing, you know, she's in the loo, and they don't know she's in there, and people are chatting about her outside of the door, and they're saying, oh, I can't believe she said that. And she realised after a bit they were talking to her doppelganger, Naomi Wolf. They couldn't tell the difference between the pair of them. They are very, very different looking. They're of a vaguely similar age, but they don't look alike at all. But a lot of people don't necessarily know what authors look like. The problem has been is that, you know, going way back, they've written about different things. Naomi Klein has tended to write about macroeconomics and how, you know, how the corporate has captured the personal. Naomi Wolf was very much writing more from the personal end of that, often about political issues to do with women. But over time, she's gone down the rabbit hole a little bit and is appearing in all the right-wing podcasts now and has become a fully paid-up Donny fan. And, you know, Naomi Klein didn't used to worry about the problems of being confused with her until she was confused with someone who had done that. It's also a book about, I mean, it's written in 2022. It's a book about how America was sliding towards what we have now. Naomi Klein lives in Canada, but still there was evidence of it there, is that people that she used to see as being avowed liberals is like how people aren't siloed politically anymore. People you would think who were into health foods and stuff like that have actually honestly gone a bit eco-fascist over the time when COVID was a thing, which is when this book was written. And she believes to a certain extent is that Naomi Wolf went that way. There wouldn't have been a lot between them politically if you go back 20 years, but there's a heck of a distance now. She talks about duality a lot as well, about how there's always a mirror of you out there and and things about the self. It's a really great book. It's quite a thick read and it goes quite deep. But, you know, essentially just starting off on the fact that people can't tell famous women apart because patriarchy. Yeah, I would recommend this trip into the mirror world if you really want to see how easy it is for someone to slide into it.
Thank you very much, Barry. So I'm going to talk about a book that I've only just started, but I'm very much looking forward to cracking on with. And it's by Katherine May, who I'd actually read Wintering during the recent winter, which was about the power of rest and retreat in difficult times. And I loved it in a way I wasn't expecting, because it actually made me stop and think, which I don't always do when I'm reading. I can sometimes get a little bit ahead of myself and get into that racing through it, which I also enjoy. I love a page turner, but I really like the way that this was actually making me pause and try and digest what was being said. And so I'm just about to start her new one, Enchantment, which is, or I should say, sorry, a more recent one, which is Reawakening Wonder in an Exhausted Age, which I think a lot of us can relate to. So I'll read the back of it, but also as well, on a personal level, I'm very grateful to Katherine, because she set up the Medway Mermaids writing group, and it's from there that I managed to explore a lot of my own writing, but I've also made friendships that have meant a great deal to me today and throughout the past 2 decades. So the back of the book says, feeling drained and burned out, Katherine May seeks to unravel the threads of a life wound too tightly. Could there be another way to live? One that feels more meaningful, grounded, connected. On a journey that takes her from sacred wells to wild moors, from cradling seas to starfalls, May begins to explore the restorative properties of the natural environment and to find a more hopeful relationship to the world around her. Enchantment is an invitation to each of us to experience life in all its sensual complexity, to find the beauty waiting for us there. And one of the reasons that really appeals is because I know during lockdown, that gave me the opportunity to explore where we live around Medway. I think we're really blessed. We've got some great country parks, some great nature to just absorb ourselves in. So I've only just started, but I'm really loving what I've read so far. So that was Enchantment by Katherine May, and unsurprisingly, it's a Sunday Times bestseller.
Excellent.
So my last book recommendation, suggestion I'm going to say rather than recommendation, is also a New York Times bestseller and Observer Graphic Novel of the Month. It's called Through the Woods, and it's stories by Emily Carroll. I didn't know Emily Carroll, but she's an award-winning comic creator, and this is a collection of short stories, kind of horror short stories. So a quote from the back is, "Enchanting. Carroll's talent is immense. The mood of these stories is Brothers Grimm by the way of Patricia Highsmith or Stephen King, while her drawings seem to channel Edward Gorey." That was Rachel Cook in The Observer. And I absolutely love her drawings. It's a full colour graphic novel, making lots of use of primary colours like blue, red, a lot of black as well, and black and white. And it's just it's interlinked short stories where people are kind of getting lost in the woods or meeting mysterious strangers who might or might not be monsters. It's just lovely. There's some pages where there's no words at all. The words are really incorporated into the story very skillfully. Sort of space and just black background is like really effective as well. And yeah, lovely book, really scary. So this one is definitely my graphic novel, but also my book recommendation of the podcast. So that is Through the Woods, stories by Emily Carroll. And I'd also just like to say, after reading Through the Woods, I got a guest in the house by E.M. Carroll, who is also the same person, which is also amazing and very, very horrifying. I didn't really know the genre of horror graphic novels, but it's definitely something, because of this author, that I'll be looking further into.
I can totally see the Edward Gorey thing in it, just looking over your shoulder there.
But I just love, I'm sitting across the room and I can see just how striking the front covers are. Very absorbing.
Cool. So what would your top recommendation of the podcast be, Barry?
It's a tie.
Yeah.
It's a tie. And of course, me being me, I'm going for the poets.
Yeah.
It's Caleb Femi and it's Joelle Taylor, because they've done something. I wouldn't say Joelle Taylor's done something with a genre that no one else has done, but she's really, really pushed a certain genre quite artfully ahead there. And Caleb Femi's is like, again, it's like, I'm showing you what you can do with poetry. This is poetry, and you read it and you realise it is poetry, but it's not like poetry you've ever read, not really.
And what would yours be, Anne-Marie?
Well, that's like asking between
Choose
my
your
favourite child. However, as I don't have children, it should probably be an easier task. At the moment, because it's the only one I've fully read, and I absolutely adored it, I'd say the Emily Dean, Everyone Died, So I Got a Dog. And so for me, that would be my top tip for summer reading.
Coming up now, we're delighted to be joined by author and all-round everything lady, Melissa Todd, and we asked her about not only her reading recommendations, but to tell us about the new shop.
My name is Melissa Todd. I'm a writer and performer from Broadstairs, and I'm opening a bookshop in Ramsgate.
Cool. So why a bookshop and why in Ramsgate?
Always fancied running a bookshop like so many people, and Ramsgate's sort of been the sad, sickly cousin of Broadstairs and Margate in many ways. It's sort of limping behind and a bit forgotten, which I think is a real shame, because it's a beautiful, beautiful town, and there's so much creativity happens there, so many poets and open mics and things. So the idea of having like a massive community hub there was just really appealing. And so Seb Riley and I were part of Thanet Writers while that was happening. It sadly fell apart about 5 years ago. But we've been talking on and off about maybe starting up a publishing company together. And then he lost his job unexpectedly. I'm sure I'm allowed to say that. And so he suddenly thought, well, it's now or never. Let's do something. Let's make something happen. Yeah, we found this massive space in Ramsgate. Well, he did. He's doing everything, I have to say. I'm doing nothing. I'm just applauding from the sideline. And just decided to turn it into a bookshop. Plunder.
Why is it called Plunder, and can you tell me about the pirate theme?
Yes, so Seb has a 6-year-old son who's obsessed with pirates, so I think in truth this is just part of Seb's campaign to be like the coolest dad ever, which I fully respect and get behind. But also obviously Ramsgate has a very long history of pirate behaviour and smuggling, you know, and we really want to draw on that local history stuff and have a big section of local books looking at how Ramsgate has sort of always been slightly sort of murky side of the law quite often, because I think that's really interesting and fun. People love pirates, you know, the outfits are great. There are so many brilliant pirate-themed books. So, yeah, rather than just a bookshop, another bookshop, just go with a bit of a theme. I mean, obviously, it's not all going to be piratey literature. You're allowed in if you don't have a sword. But just a little bit of a nod to that, to Ramsgate's history and heritage, I think would be quite cool. So more than just books, there will be, you know, stuff you can play with and mess with and get a bit mucky and rumble tumble with. That's the plan.
So, I mean, that sounds like a really cunning way to get children and their parents into the bookshop.
Definitely, that's right, yeah. We all know kids are not reading as much as they used to. And we're basically bribing them to come in. There'll be lollipops as well. We're throwing everything at this. So, hopefully, they'll come to the pirate ship, grab a few books from the shelves while they're at it. And there'll be tea and coffee as well for the mums to hang out while the kids are playing.
So you can have like a little cafe area?
Yes, very much so. So there'll be a big seating area, and nothing fancy, but certainly teas and coffees, and hopefully at one point that'll be licensed. That'd be really, really great if we could. But certainly there'll be lots of seating, and we really want to encourage people to hang around and not feel pressured into spending money necessarily, or choose their book and clear off. We want it to be a community space where people feel happy and comfortable to spend some time with us and just hanging out with proper book lovers and sharing stories, hopefully. We hope very much there'll be events as well, some poetry nights, launches, open mics, who knows what else. But we want it to be really part of the community.
Cool. And when are you hoping to open?
We're hoping for the end of June. That's the plan. So it was just an empty shell, so Seb is busy down there every single day building stuff and putting up lights and making endless chairs and shelves from IKEA and stuff. So hopefully the end of June is the plan. We've got to start making some money because we've run out.
Also, just to give another plug to the festival, we are going to be partnering with you as our festival bookshop. So that's a secret, amazing announcement that we've just made.
Yes, I'm so excited by that. I really am, and absolutely honoured, because obviously we're quite a long way from Medway, but I'm so thrilled. I love being part of the Riverlet. I come to as many things as I possibly can. So really really brilliant to have that opportunity. So I'll be up there hawking books, I hope, and enjoying and seeing as many events as I can.
I think that's the thing, Melissa. You know, you have been part of Riverlit since the start. You've performed at it, you've read from your books at it. It just seemed like a really great partnership idea as soon as we heard that you're setting up a bookshop, basically.
Oh.
So I was just going to ask you about your upcoming book as well. Could you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, my new book is called Gag Writer. That's out June 26th, and it's simply all my sort of favourite columns from Love It magazine. So I'm Love It's longest serving columnist. I've been doing it for 4.5 years now. Some people keep saying to me, you should put them in a book because they don't go online. So if you don't buy Love It, which let's face it, most of us don't. So I kept thinking about it and thought, that'd be quite an easy, simple way to put another book out. And I love a book, as you know. So I did. And so that's 129 of my best ever columns, only because it turns out I can't count. It was meant to be 120 and I found it's 129. I quite like the randomness of that. So yeah, they're all about sort of 3-minute long read. So something you can slip in your handbag, read on the loo. That's the plan. 129 of them. And they're very varied about my bizarre career and other things.
Amazing. Either what is a book you've recently read that you would recommend to other people to read over the summer, or just a favourite book, really.
I've just finished reading Philip Roth's The Human Stain, which somebody kept insisting I read, and I did enjoy it, but my goodness, it was the most depressing thing I've ever read in my life. It's just horrific. But I'm glad I've read it, and I'm glad it's over. And I've literally just picked up Madame Bovary again, because I haven't read that for like 30 years, and I was just obsessed with it when I was a teenager. So I love rereading books now, because you just respond to them so differently when you've had a bit more life experience. So yeah, Madame Bovary, how about that? That's a good beach read.
Wow, yeah. I mean, it is interesting, I think, the way from like when you read when you're a kid and when you read when you're older. Because I remember that, yeah, when I was young, I would like read a book 4 or 5 times. I would just get it out from the library every few months. I don't do that now.
No, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know why. Yeah, it's true. Someone said we don't read books, we read ourselves in books. And I think they just start meaning different things to you as you get older and have more life behind you, I guess.
And also, we probably don't have the time to read a book 5 times, really, do we?
Sadly, that's also true. You become aware of just how much there is to read and how little time you've got to do it.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
So there we are. Podcast 10 is podcasted. Thanks to Sam, Anne-Marie and Melissa. I have been Barry Fenniman Hall. Find out more about Medway Riverlit on our website at www.medwayriverlit.co.uk and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Happy holiday reading. Now here are some credits. This has been produced by Sam Hall. It has been hosted by me, BFH, and our guests have been Anne-Marie Jordan and Melissa Todd. Thank you. Find the subtitled version on YouTube or listen on Spotify. Thanks also to Stuart Turner, who has let us use an extract from Chatham Town in the podcast. Find his stuff on Bandcamp and Amazon.